Welcome. It's 9:04. Well, at least where I am. It's Monday the 9th, though, for everyone that's on the call, at least. There's a little over 10 of you on. Good. If you don't have your name in the meeting minutes, please drop your name in. A link to the meeting minutes is in the chat. Just a reminder, hey, all of you are familiar face at this point, so you're aware that we record the meetings and post them on YouTube. And with that, we've got a few things to go over in context of WebAssembly filters. A little less today on WebAssembly as a technology and Envoy as part of that focus, but a little more today probably on how Meshery is managing filters and some related concepts. So Etain is joining, and so I might repeat a couple of things just as soon as they come on, so they have familiarity. So good. So I think Gaurav is, Abi, do you know, or Navendu, do you know if this has landed already? And if we can just look at it without Gaurav?
I don't think so.
Not even the bulk delete, huh? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna bring up an instance of Meshery. All right, so let's put this one toward the bottom then. Okay, good. Well, the first topic was pretty quick. By the way, so as we get kicked off here, we run this call just like we run all the other community calls. And so we take a moment to introduce anyone who's new on the call. And it looks like my Meshery is coming up, so it's refreshing on me. But now's your chance. If this is your first time on this particular call, please take a moment to say hi, introduce yourself. And Etain, you might get picked on. You're the lucky winner today, I think. We can almost hear you. Say it again.
Good everyone. My name is Etine Esseno. I'm a full stack web developer.
Very good. Good. I think your voice cut out a little bit, but we did get the
Mic test.
There you go. Yeah, we can hear
my
you.
name is Etine Esseno. I'm a full stack web developer working here in Nigeria.
Nice. Beautiful. Welcome. Very, very nice to have you. By the way, wait, say your first name one more time. Is it Etain? Nice.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, you know what, Etain, it's great to have you. There's a couple of other meetings that might interest you as well. And so we just had a websites meeting actually that might be of interest as well. So no doubt some of the folks on the call will tell you about those. So good. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. All right. So we've got a couple of topics up. So, well, Utkarsh, this is a little bit left over from last time that we met. And I think we were, if I recall, I think we were having more of a discussion about various items to configure of filters. And I think in the time that we last met, somewhere in between there, we ended up with a couple of new components potentially. And so those components bear weight on some of the work that Avi Kumar is working on in terms of the user experience for when someone goes to try to, deploy a filter from Meshery UI.
Okay, I'm not sure. I understood the first part. That is, there were some proposals of adding a few more attributes that we stored about filters. But I'm not. I couldn't quite get the part of basically the relation with the mesh UI. If you can.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of the items that we spoke about last time in terms of capturing had to deal, well, not just specifically with filters, but also ended up applying to patterns and applications as well, to the extent that people have uploaded a file to Meshery. It's nice to be able to show back some display name, but also the file name of the pattern of the application of the filter. For pattern and application, there might not be a file name based on, because maybe they loaded it in a different way. But anyway, those were attributes, kind of common attributes I think we want to expose across patterns, applications, and filters. So Abhi and Meghana, as you, hopefully your ears are picking up as we're talking about this. And then Utkarsh, for filters specifically, there were a number of other, a number of other concerns about other attributes to be specified for a filter, things like where it landed in the filter chain, if it was evaluating inbound or outbound traffic, some of those concerns.
Okay, yeah, right now I remember. So yeah, there were a few. If we talk about only filters for now, so there were a few things that I was proposing that we can and probably should track when we actually store filters in the databases, and those fields were where the filter should land in filter chain. That is, what position should it be dropped into, and if it's supposed to be dropped into sidecar or should it be dropped into a gateway, and those kind of stuff. That configuration. The reason we may want to capture this is, first, definitely it makes it more configurable. And the second reason I was proposing this was because we have a few filters which are like special to Meshery, like rate limiting and all. In those cases, we do not actually require the user to input those kind of things, and we can still save them on. So basically, it would be a more generic approach. That is, these are special filters. We have the configuration for them. Just apply it, and we will drop it in the right position. Just let us know where to drop it. That is what workload to actually select. So the 2 or 3 fields that I was proposing, first was basically the position in filter chain. Second was which workload to select, and third is what component to select. That is it a sidecar proxy? Basically, sidecar bound is what I guess they call it, or basically gateway in inbound traffic or outbound traffic. Those kind of configuration. That is that is what I was basically proposing to. And the generic fields that that we were talking about was basically separating out the patterns name. So patterns in themselves have actually a name field in them, but we can allow which in some cases actually happens also. So mesh map is the example. Mesh map actually keeps pattern name separate and the file like the display name separate. So that's a thing that we can maybe make more common among patterns, applications, and filters. That is, the name, the attribute that is assigned inside the file is completely different than what is being displayed. That basically separating out the display name with the file name.
And does it make sense that the file name is potentially optional, or not, but rather it's optional?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Although in terms of patterns, probably file name would always be present. So if you're loading it from a repository, it's still getting fetched from a file. There is a file. And if you're loading it from Meshery CTL, there is still a file. So most of the time, at least for now, you would have a file name. But probably if we support streams, input streams or something in future, then in that case, definitely there won't be a file name.
Okay. What about the case of designing from scratch in Mesh Map?
Yeah, actually, that's something. Actually, that's handled by Meshmap. Meshmap assigns a name automatically to the file, and that is the display name. the pattern name is, this is what Meshmap does differently than what is being happening in Meshri UI. What Meshmap does is it's actually even today separates out the display name from the name of the pattern. Display name is something that the user sets. The pattern name is something that the server is setting. And that is Meshri generated pattern. That's common among everything, every pattern that's being generated when you design using Meshmap. While the display name is something that the user can set to anything they want to. Like I recently created, I was trying book info, deploying book info from Meshmap, and I called the display name to be book info new to something, but the pattern name was Meshri generated pattern. So that's something Meshmap is already doing, but we should probably be doing the same thing in Meshri UI also. That is separating out the display name with the pattern name.
Okay, so I guess just to be concise, when someone designs a new pattern in Meshmap, Meshmap as a plugin is not only providing a display name, but is also responsible for providing a file name.
Right now patterns do not have a different thing called file name. They have two attributes, the display name and the name that is present in the pattern. Meshmap, what it's doing is it allows you to configure the display name, while the pattern name is something that the server sets up for you. While the same is not available in common Meshri UI, what happens in that case is if you would go to the pattern section, which probably it's not showing up here. Okay, it is. So these patterns name that you would see, if you would upload something from here, it will grab the pattern name, what that is a display name that is coming in this pattern name column. It will grab it from whatever the name was of the pattern on top. Basically, there is a field called name in the patterns. It will grab that name from here. So basically, associating this display name with a name which was inside the
it's
file.
okay. It's okay. Actually, just the answer, like if the answer is, hey, look, we're going to have common attributes across patterns, applications, and filters, then and if those common attributes are file name, display name, and right now applications doesn't, it only has one, then it needs to have a second one added or needs to be split out. And then as we implement that, those two as universal attributes of objects like these, that in some cases, we either can allow the file name to be optional or we can mandate it. We just need to make sure that plugins also adhere to that. As a client, they also adhere to the same requirement, and they can. I think that's yeah, your explanation is a healthy one of like, well, like technically patterns don't support both at the moment, but then but if we go to just make this uniform, I think it'll be easier. In many respects, it's just the same modal or same component, it's populated with different data, and potentially different action. I mean, it ends up being different actions, but it's good that they're uniform. Does that make sense? Do you agree that we should split out and add another attribute on patterns?
For file name?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we definitely can. Although just to basically inform, we already keep track of where this thing was captured from. It's just not being displayed right now. So that's something we do keep track of. Basically, its location.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I don't, and for my part, I don't particularly have a strong opinion per se about. I think the only opinion that I really have is that display name be distinct from the identifier, whatever that ends up being. And I think for each pattern as a construct, application as a construct, and filter as a construct, I think each of those have their own identifier. They would then each have their own display name. And to the extent that they're represented as a file, that they would have, a location, a file name or a location. And I think that unless I'm missing the mark, all of the way that the data structure behind each of those three constructs, I think those can be, I mean, there's commonalities across them. And for the purposes of file name and display name, or location and display name, that those could be the same. Either way, it'll serve us very well if there's a short spec, or just a short, someone just writes down like what those attributes are. Rox, do you think this is something you can do?
Yep. So basically, writing about what stuff is associated with the WASM binary and the configuration, right?
Yep, and it doesn't at this point, it doesn't necessarily have to go very deep. More, yes, it's what you said, but it's actually focused specifically on what are common attributes across patterns, apps, and filters, which
Okay.
makes it, yeah, which I think makes it a little bit of an easier challenge because the filters end up going a little deeper with additional metadata. But and Utkarsh, does that, I can't see you, so I don't, where'd you go? Does that sound about right? I mean, is that, did you want to do this design or?
No, I think Rudrakshan.
Okay, dude, okay. And Rudrakshan, just to, you're pretty comfortable there?
I'm not so good with writing stuff, but yeah, I'll try.
If and you know what it can be is just a set of bullet points that talk about what attributes are currently being tracked for each of these constructs, and that's what's common. What that'll really help with driving the user experience for, as Meghana and Gaurav and Abhi and folks work on these three areas. For the user as well, that at least for right now, the users of Meshri, as they're using the UI here, they'll have a common experience up to the point that one of these has additional metadata, and some of that has to do with when you go to deploy the thing and how it's being applied, whether it's just a simple apply or whether there's additional questions to ask. So
Cool.
cool. Okay. Abhi, were you going to say something?
Yes. Actually, I had few questions. Like I was applying the same field testing like the RGFS form in the UI, and you make RGFS form available for the remaining two. What is that? Sorry. Applications, filters, patterns, applications, right? So I have just added one, and it is actually working for the application because the OM workload and OM traits that are coming from the server, like from the API call, has the schema that is suitable for applications only right now. So I was not sure like how to like make it happen for other things, like for filters and other patterns.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
If I can,
yeah.
I can show it, right? Yeah. So share screen. Yeah. So I hope it is visible. Yeah, it is. So first of all, this is the third icon that I have added just temporarily just to check out things. And when I click on it, it will actually take this YAML file from here, and it will convert it to the JSON and then parse it accordingly for the form. And just push it to the schema, and the things are generated here, right? So I can add more applications from here, right? So another container name, sorry, autocomplete, container name too, and I can use any that's in 1990 for now, and I can submit, right? So it generated a new pattern for me with this by duplicating the previous pattern that I just opened. and the new pattern is generated here with the YAML configuration, like we just generated it. This, so actually it is writing things in a different manner for now, so I will fix it. And yeah, so I can see the information right here. I can even reiterate the previous process to make it make it as a new pattern for now, or I can just add an update button here, like here is submit button, delete button, and I can add one more button which is for updating things, so that I can update it in the current form only. So that's the progress for now, and actually it's not working for different things, since if you see local hosts, yeah, so that's the schema that is coming from own workloads, and it is only following application, like the schema suitable for application, since there are some different failed to fetch, I guess it's expired, token expired. So basically it's not following, it's not following the other schema or something. Let me just refresh the token. It's not, yeah, yeah. And secondly, the UI server is fixed, I guess, because I'm not getting the same loading thing after refreshing the UI server again and again. So I think that was that problem was fixed with that PR.
That's good.
Yeah. So if we can see something like this, like with edge. So with edge has a different configuration with traits and
Abhishek, actually, this is valid pattern. It's just that it's not yet valid because the PR hasn't been merged. Once it will be merged, this pattern would become like basically the schema, JSON schema would automatically update, and so the pattern would actually pass through. It's a new.
And uh, okay. And about this, right? So it has different fields like Prometheus, Grafana, and then traits. Then how I can just populate this much long information in the RJFS form? I was very worried about, like it will clearly go very long, and the schema is also not there.
Again, two things. Actually, this is I don't I think while testing out, someone uploaded this particular filter, but this is a pattern file. It's not a filter. That's first thing. The second thing is about the concern regarding schemas. So the reason you are not seeing some of the schemas is because these schemas may be coming from different components. And those components, this is actually the right. Basically, this is a correct filter. So what you have to do to actually apply it is to run istio adapter. Once you will actually spin up istio adapter, it will register its JSON schema. This is something that istio adapter actually handles. That's somewhat the name conveys on web filter istio. If you would have istio adapter running, it will register its JSON schema, and then this pattern file would work just fine. Right now, the server might be rejecting it, saying that, hey, you do not, basically, this is not a valid pattern.
Okay. I was worried about like how to incorporate this under a new schema. Like, is there any better approach to do it for the like into the RJFS form?
I'm not sure I got the question, but you will actually get the schema for on-web filter istio component also. Yeah.
Okay. From which API, like from which endpoint?
The endpoint that you were hitting, slash API slash.
From this endpoint only, API workload.
Yeah, you will be able to see the schema for every component that exists in Mystery Server. Yeah. It's just that you are not being able, like, it's not returning those schemas right now because you do not have istio adapter running. Because even Mystery Server doesn't know that those schemas exist. It will only get to know about them once istio adapter starts. And basically, when you start up istio adapter instance.
Okay. I will try it out. Thanks.
Okay, just also to clarify, I think for everyone else that that for a filter, the user experience will be fairly consistent from filter to filter to filter, but between applications and between patterns, they may describe very different things. One pattern may describe a performance test, while the other one describes a canary plus a performance test plus a service mesh. So when someone goes to edit a given pattern or edit an application, that may mean that you need to display any number of components to be able to configure. And so really like the tooltip that we're using to edit or the modal that's being displayed to edit RJSF components. So Avi, that won't work for patterns or applications. Like we'll need to have a different, what we'll need to do is in a pattern may be, 5 lines long, or it may be 120 lines long. The 120 line long file, it may say, okay, this pattern has one application, it has a second application, it has a performance test, blah, 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 and it just keeps going. And so those individual sections, those individual stanzas, so to speak, they would need to be, like as we go to show them in the UI, they'll need to be componentized. I mean, like you'll need to show the fact that all of the aspects of the pattern can be edited and each of those attributes can be configured. And we're doing, that more or less now in that small modal or that small tooltip. I'm not sure what we're using for the filters or for the patterns. I'm sorry that you're doing. You're showing patterns with containers and replicas. And so if you have 50 applications inside that pattern, you can use a modal, but it needs to be sticky. People need to expressly dismiss it, not by clicking somewhere else, because they might be really involved in like filling in this long form. And it may go on for a long time as well. And so one thing to do is to not show a modal when someone is editing a pattern, rather just expand the row of that particular pattern in the table and show as much as is needed in that expanded row. I don't know if my voice came through the whole time, if that makes sense.
Yes, actually, it was not a continuous voice, but yeah, I got the thing. And we have to change the schema to, right? For I was seeing the schema for adding that auto completion feature, it has different schema, right? So we have to change. Should it be the work for back, or should it be the work for front end?
Yeah, I don't know. Utkarsh, do you have a perspective? I would have assumed that was for the front end. The back end is just saying there's any number of, well, or let me ask this, is there only one schema that can be associated with the pattern? We can have multiple schemas included in that pattern.
So yeah, there can be multiple schemas associated with a single pattern. Actually, that's design. A pattern can have any number of components, different components, same components, and each component may or may not have same JSON schema. You can query for JSON schema using the endpoint that you have, Abhishek, and using that you can get JSON schema corresponding to each component. And based on that, you can probably render RJSF forms because RJSF forms feeds on JSON schema. So actually, that's the sort of design. That is, pattern file may have similar components, so same JSON schema, or may have entirely different components. So every component will have different schema.
Actually, I think I have to watch recording since Like my internet connection is really very poor right now, and I
Gotcha.
couldn't hear properly anyone's sound. Sorry, but yeah, I got something out of it. So yeah, I will work on it, and if I have some doubts, so I will ask you. No problem.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Good. Okay, good. As we go along as well, it might help clarify. So Megan, if we switch topics to one of the things that we are looking at enhancing, do you want to cover this topic and talk about your work here?
Okay, so I'm working on the filter part of it. And I actually just started working on it last week. I was very unwell actually, so I couldn't work on it. So I just started working on the filter part. I'm trying to add the model. There is no big update on that, to be honest.
Okay, sure. Is there any, okay, good. In essence, or let me clarify, anything that you've been able to do since last week that we can talk about, or will we take a pass this week?
It's not a big add-on. To be honest, there isn't much. I'm going through the code and trying to add the model part. There's a lot of code in that page, so I'm trying to understand how to add it. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm getting a few errors, so I'm trying to fix it.
Yep, makes sense. So each of these three, these were to basically add support for uploading by URL to filters, patterns, and applications. Is that right?
Yes, I think, yeah, each one is
Okay.
good.
Okay, cool.
So I'm working. I think someone else is going to start working on the patterns or applications. I'm not sure. I saw it in Slack. I think someone else has taken up the task. I'm not sure. Yeah, currently I'm working on the filters part. So that's the one I'm working on. So
Okay. Yeah, at least no one has taken assignment of those just yet.
oh,
Actually, in
okay.
a lot of respects, as you go to create this, that ideally ends up being something of a reusable component that can be
Yeah.
used. Okay. So in that case, in many respects, you've got the ball probably on all three.
Okay, so should I be making it like a reusable component because I'm trying to fit it in the filter code itself? So if I need to make it as a different component, then I have to take a different approach. So just wanted to know.
Yeah. Does anyone else think that it should be a reusable component?
I think it can be a reusable component because all three have this thing in common. That is, they can be imported in the same way from remote URLs. So if it's reusable, then
Nice. Good.
Okay,
Yes.
sure.
All right.
I'll try to do that. Yeah, sure.
Good. And then, yeah, Megan, if you can, as you progress on it this week, you drop in intermediate updates as you go, like, or ask questions as you go. So that way you're not, you don't get stuck.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that.
All right. So, Surya Shankar.
Yeah. So like initially when I made the changes in my PR, like I directly edited the swagger.yml file, but like it's auto like regenerated like every time like there's a push. So like that won't work. So like I have to edit the annotations, but the problem I'm currently facing right now is that the commands used to like regenerate the swagger.yml file, like when I'm trying it out locally, it's giving me a broken output.
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen and share
Sure.
the error?
Hello.
Yep. Hey, it's starting, but it hasn't shared just yet.
No, on my Zoom just crashed right now. I just rejoined.
Okay. Yeah, let's take the, there you go.
Is it visible?
Nope, it is sharing, but it's just not sharing the application that you're focused on. I think it's probably sharing your second screen or something like that.
Mm,
Did you happen to paste the error anywhere else?
no, wait, I have the error open right now. So it's not mostly about the error, like even if there's an error, like the swagger.yml file is being generated, but even after it's being generated, like some of the stuff in the like docs, it's not coming, like it's just missing. Like even if I did not change anything, just regenerating the file causes things to go missing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Mm,
Actually, you can try to share it with different browsers. Since some browser like Chrome or Firefox just deny screen sharing without enabling it separately. Enabling.
like I'm currently using the Zoom app right now in Linux.
No. So what are you sharing right now?
Uh,
Window browser, right?
like I'm trying to share my desktop one. I also tried sharing portion of screen.
Yeah, it's now visible.
Mm, okay. So anyways, like this is the error. Like it's not really informative. And I think it got cut off.
Cool. All right. So Yashankar, we'll let you take a screenshot of it and share it later, or copy and
Yeah.
paste the. Okay. Yeah. You see, you've pasted the error into chat, and so yeah. I mean, I don't this. Good. So that one of the individuals that was working on this is Piyush Singaria. He might be a good person to request some assistance from.
Yeah, sure. Like
I haven't worked with.
I tried the commands in the like guide like sent by him, I guess. Like the make the standard make swagger spec and make swagger docs. Like just running these two commands is creating a completely like different like swagger.yml, and when you run the docs.measure.io, like it's giving me an incomplete like response, you could say.
Yep, cool. I'm pasting your message to him now. Who's next? What else are we going to talk about today? Shahitan's going to assist there.
So I guess I had to do a design spec, but I wasn't able to give any thoughts on this. And integrating it into the build process, I had this one question like, shouldn't we release the binaries for those filters on the repo itself? Like, it would be a mess to build them every time we build Docker image for this. So,
right. Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, maybe let's hold off on. Yeah, the area that you're going to dig into a little bit probably does require a little deeper thought. I can collaborate with you on putting some of that on paper. Because yeah, I don't know that there's a clear, or there's a number of things to consider. And you're right, like for the moment, or at least in our initial support here, that if we're bundling in sample filters, that those are pre-built, that we're not building them on the fly. Okay. So Gaurav isn't with us, but we kind of talked about the need to have common attributes across the components. Utkarsh is going to, just briefly document a set of specific Envoy filter specific attributes. So Nivendu, this is an area that you'd worked on in the past. There's a couple of issues that are going on with filters. So one, I can't delete a filter. It'll come right back to me. Is that a known issue?
No, I'll raise a bug and fix it.
Good deal. Thank you. And then there's an outstanding PR for the Meshery provider for filters. I'm trying to recall if.
Yeah. So that PR was to let people store the binaries in the database. So the filter binaries, and it also adds an endpoint to serve the filter files. So yeah, that PR could be merged, I guess.
Okay. Right now, okay, good. So there's a comment. So between someone needs to have we need to have a spec for what we're tracking about filters. And we kind of do, but I think it's gotten lost. And so what further changes do you need to make to the Meshery cloud to beyond this PR, Nivendu?
Nothing else in Meshery cloud really. Only on Meshery server to deploy the filters, like pick the configuration and bundle that up into a pattern file and actually deploy it. I think there is nothing left on the provider side.
Okay, so Meshery cloud captures like the direction of inbound or outbound, in terms of how to apply the filter.
Oh, no, it doesn't currently. Okay, so we are meant to, like we discussed the last time, we have to capture that as well in the database.
And so we need a spec. Has some of this been written down, or where are we going to put this?
There was a design spec for WASM filters, but it is outdated, I guess. So we can track it over there. Let me share the link in chat.
So Utkarsh, as you're looking at this as well, I suppose it is there a different document other than this filters hub or filter hub?
Lee, I have shared one on the chat. Like this was one we created when we started working on filters, but
okay, nice. Yeah, this looks good.
We can track it here, I guess.
Okay. All right. So Rude Rock, I think some of the thoughts of the design that you would have probably go into the filter hub design spec, while some of the particulars of what we're talking about tracking attributes on filters, that would go into this doc. Good. I think that'll help provide some clarity as we've got that written down.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So, all right, so Joshua isn't on, and neither is Anirban. So Anirban, I think, is bowing out of the original, the prior commitment to present Envoy traffic mirroring. He spoke about it a little bit a while ago when he did his other presentation, but I think he's going to feel a lot more comfortable working on some C++ in Get Nighthawk on adaptive load controllers. So, and then Joshua, I think he's still just waiting for approval from Oracle. All right, so that brings us back to, I think, Abhi and Meghana. So, Abhi, I'll send you a screenshot, or actually, I'll try to show you right now of what I mean by maybe not showing a modal for application and pattern configuration.
Yeah. Yes.
But probably something a bit more like, potentially like this. If you have a table of things that you're looking at, a table of patterns, and you go to, well, I guess actually we're not doing it here anymore. Huh. Anyway, okay, this is a bad example. You can.
So I think if you would switch to table mode, probably that's what.
Thank you. Boy. Oh, I see. Yeah. All right, here we go. So if we're here looking at patterns, and patterns potentially have all kinds of things inside of them that we're tracking, there may make sense to, so when someone goes to, when they go to edit or they go to dig into the details, there could potentially be so many details that we would basically end up with either another table in a table. So the details might be that in one pattern, there are 10 applications, let's say. So then if you get a sub table with one row per application, it might make sense at that point to then have the edit button to be able to edit that particular app, and it probably most of the time wouldn't be YAML. Actually, that's the thing that we're trying to get away from. We want to dynamically display various input fields instead. Abhi, does that make sense?
Sorry. So, what's the requirement here?
Yeah. Try to move away from on the patterns UI. Try to move away from using a modal and instead have a table in table. Break down each. Maybe it's a table in table, but it's at least an expandable row. Maybe it doesn't make sense to show a table. It just makes sense to show the title of that component. So in a pattern, if you have 10 applications in a pattern, this would be the name of that component. So in this case, like the name of the application, the first one, whatever input fields are appropriate. So containers and replicas, the fields that you've been showing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit of a separator with padding or margin, and then the name of the second application, and just repeated 10 times down the page.
Okay. So currently it's in the form of table, and we want something like cards, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I would go light on the card thing and more just trying to present someone like little light separators between one component in the configuration of that component versus the next. But yeah, essentially cards, yeah. We just don't want a stack of paper on paper on paper on paper.
Yeah. That's not really good. Okay. So, okay, great. We'll discuss more when we'll be implementing it. So should I open an issue, or you?
Yeah, if you would, yeah, please. I think that this issue is probably the one. Yep, I mean, this will work. It's really, it ends up being like the same thing. We're just, you're retrieving a workload from the Ohm/workload, and it has either one component with some attributes, or it has 9,000 components with some attributes each. You know what I mean? So it just needs to be dynamic such that.
Okay. Actually, this workload thing is still not very clear to me. Actually, I don't know why.
Okay.
Still.
Okay.
I'll actually ping you, Abhishek. I'll clear out some stuff and probably.
So I had So one more thing, like what's the difference between filters and patterns?
Nothing. Actually, I wouldn't even bother with it. Don't even try to think of it as different. Like, I mean, like, like eventually you'll get there and you'll think of it as different. For the time being, we're really just looking for the same thing that Megan is doing with a component for importing via URL is like, it's the same UI that we would basically desire across patterns, applications, and filters. And so just to answer your question in a non-technical way, which I think actually is what you're asking, is like a pattern can contain a definition of any number of filters, whereas the filter UI, it will only display filters if they're stored, you know, independently.
Okay.
Same thing for applicate. The pattern is the umbrella concept. Inside of a pattern, you can describe an app, you can describe a filter. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Yeah, there's some designs that we have to do. There's a little bit of asynchronous collaboration we'll need to do to get some designs in the right place. That way it'll be a bit more clear for folks. Get some mock-ups going as well. So it's a bit like Abhi's not an unintelligent individual. Like it's not well defined. So we can get that changed this week. So. All righty, very good. Nice to talk to you all. We'll get some designs and written designs and mock-ups going for next week. Navendu dropped in the link again to the spec. Good. Okay, see you all in a while. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye guys. Bye Abhi.
Bye.
Bye Meghna.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.